I've been here in Indiana since 2006. So that's now 17 years or so. So Indiana is the place I've lived the longest my whole life. So it's technically home to me, right? And at the time when I moved, it took me 2 years to find another Haitian. That's how rare it was to find a Haitian here in town. And I worked in Columbus, Indiana, out of Cummins. And so I was away from the city. So that was, the chances of finding Haitian was even more remote. Um, I got married in 2008, and my wife was coming from Miami, and she came and she said, "Well, there has to be Haitians here." So she went on this mission to find Haitians, and we stumbled upon the association at the time, and that was around the end of 2010. So when I came to my first meeting, that was January 2011, and first day in, I became the secretary on my first meeting. And I have held every position you can think of over the past 12 years. I've been the secretary, the VP of development, the president, the treasurer, and board. And there was a time when it was down to just two of us, and I was one of those two people, right? So those 15 years, have been way up and way down and everything in between, and I've been here for a big part of it. But I have also been around long enough to see how the community just transformed, right? When I started, I'd say at best there were maybe 3, 4 dozen Haitians here in town. And I remember this story. My wife and I were driving on the highway, and we looked to the side, and there was a car with a Haitian flag that was hanging on the mirror. And we looked, and we made eye contact, and we were so excited. We both got off the highway just to say hi. That's how rare it was to find a Haitian around the 2011 time frame. Now we're talking, numbers in the 30, 40,000, right? And so this dramatic shift, I've seen it all happen, right? And I've also seen over these years how the association has also evolved with every step to meet the changing needs, right? So at first, it was more of a social club, right? That was a chance for us to get together. We meet up every now and then. We cook some food, play some dominoes, listen to some music. And so that was the early phase, the 2011 to 2013 window of HI. That was more of a social, hey, let's get together to reminisce and remember the Haiti that we knew, the Haiti that we left behind. In the 2013, 14, 15 time frame, I think that's where we saw the first wave of migration into the state. And that was driven primarily by a set of recruiters that was going outside of the state, to Miami, to New York, and bringing Haitian workers to work at a Purdue plant down in Washington, Indiana. And at the time, we had a young lady that studied here in law school, Joanna LeBlanc, and she was, here very involved with us, and she wanted to make her mark, and she was primarily focused on advocacy and support, at the grassroots levels. And that first wave of migration, what we learned is working conditions were terrible, living conditions were terrible. And we organized at the time a series of delegations where we called on to a lot of the government agencies, the EEOC, the DMV, and others. And there was a stretch of about a year and a half or so where we put together a series of town hall meetings, here in town. We would, have all these agencies, on a Sunday afternoon, driving 2 hours to Washington to host a town hall to talk about working conditions and employee information and access that that they need to have. And so that was sort of the phase two of, I guess, my time here. We went from social club to, hey, there's a bit more people here, and the conditions are changing. We need to get in front of it. We got into some advocacy work. And then the next phase, and I think this is also a next wave that came, and that was primarily here on the east side of Indianapolis. And it was similar things where, there was a series of recruiters that would go and find Haitians everywhere and bring them here. And at the time, what we learned was it was a case where they would go and pick up people by the busloads and then put them into a 1 or 2 bedroom house. So you have a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment that have 10, 12 people living in. And the way that worked is, if you're a recruiter, you go out there, you recruit 10 or 15 people. And because they don't all start work at the same time, but you get 4 or 5 that starts work, and then you start making your money. So it was a numbers game. And at the time, we were getting the calls. Again, we are an all-volunteer group. For as long as we existed, everything that we do was purely out of goodwill, and in most cases, we spend our own money to keep this whole thing alive. And so when that started to happen, and the needs then became far more than what we can do on a volunteer basis. You're like, well, we don't have the means to help with housing. We don't have the means to help with transportation because, again, we don't have it. But we were still getting the calls because, again, when you come into town, and the first thing people do, they search for Haitians in Indiana. And naturally, our organization is the first that pop up. And so because of that, we get the calls, we get the complaints. At the time, again, that would have been around the 2016-17 timeframe. Because of how we operated, we didn't really have the means to respond to what was becoming a growing need, a service-based need that a referral-based organization just wasn't in a position to support. And so we looked for ways, and we talked about, hey, we need to find a way to actually create and build an actual resource center that can actually respond to the call. And so the thought of eventually building a community center, that's something that started around the 2015-16 timeframe, again, primarily as a response to what at the time we're still in the early phase of that migration wave. And so it kept coming, and then COVID happened. And you can imagine that everyone that was coming here were all on a temporary employment status basis. And so when COVID hit and everybody shut their doors, the first people that lost their jobs were everyone that was on a temporary employment status. And so we knew we had a community of people all laid off, many, again, just dropped into town with no family, no support. And food insecurity was the number one thing that we know was an issue in town. And so we called the first meeting around March of 2020. So we reached out to all the different pastors that we knew. We say, hey, let's figure out what to do. And at the time, we decided we needed to have some kind of a food distribution program. And so we all, out of our own pockets, say, hey, let's chip in the first few dollars that we can find to put this all together. So we all got up on a Saturday and went to Kroger and Sam's Club and, packed up, bags of rice and beans and oil because we knew, hey, at the very least, we need the very basic, minimal things that we know Haitians eat. Haitians, if you have rice and beans, you're good, right? And so we started the program. And at the time, we had a small office downstairs here at the time. We came here, a group of volunteers, everyone with masks on their faces, gloves, and, we packed up all the food, set up a couple of tables outside, and waited an hour. Waited 2 hours, and no one showed up. And then what we realized is primarily the people that were in most need of this stuff were all on the east side of town in Lawrence. And they had no ways of actually getting here to pick up the food. And so we all got our cars, packed up our trunk, and drove over and delivered the food. And we did that from March 2020 to August 2020, every single week. We were delivering somewhere around 150 food packages a week for 6 months. And in the middle of the pandemic, when everybody was home, didn't want to go out, we were out there trying to do the best we could. And we knew even at the time that to get out of that mode, we had to get people back to work. And so even the company that we started, you see the logo out there, Jaspen, that came out of that process because we needed to find a way ourselves to get people back to work. So we started the staffing agency to transition people back into the workforce. Because again, at the time we knew companies out there were in desperate need of people to come to work. And we had a community of people that were desperate for work. So again, it just worked out perfectly for us. And so this is, again, all the various phases that I've seen over the past 12 or so years. And all of it is purely at the kindness of people's heart that saw the need and wanted to help. Primarily because, again, we are in a foreign land. We all we had. Whatever we could to help, we try to do on our part. So for me personally, HAI has been, that home away from home that I wanted. My kids participated in the dance program. They've been part of Flag Day for the 15 years that we've had it. We have some of the kids that have been part of that program that dance in this HAI dance group since they were 8. Some of them are now going to college, and so we can see some of this progression. Jenny, who's now working with us, who was part of the group, went to college and came back, and now she's actually working as one of the executive members of the association. So it's been a pretty remarkable 15 years. And so where we are now is to say we need now to make that next transition again, because the community is far bigger than where we started. So now we need to actually consider a truly sustainable community center where we can have paid staff and an actual place where we can offer the programs and the things that people need every day. And so that's the phase that we're on now, is trying to put together this campaign to really respond to the need of the community, which, again, when you go from a few dozen to 40, 50,000 in a span of 4 or 5 years, we were not ready for it. But we know the needs are going to continue to come, and the people are going to continue to also come, because Indiana as a state offers a lot of really good things. There's plenty of jobs. Cost of living is low. And so now that the word is out, people are just naturally now coming without even the help of some of these recruiters that initially started that process. And so what we are embarking on now is this next phase of how do we position HAI now to be a true service hub for the people that are coming. Because when we were, before, it was, hey, when you come, we can refer you to some place where you can now go get some help. The places we used to refer these people to are now seeing the wave of people that are coming to them, and they're saying, wait, I need you guys to come and help me, because, again, we are not equipped to help. Maybe if it was 1 or 2, maybe we could do it. But now when dozens and hundreds are showing up at my door, language barrier is a big thing. Cultural sensitivity is a big thing, right? So those are all the things that, we are trying to position HAI to be able to respond to those needs as we move forward. So, and it's a journey that is worth embarking on, and one that we have all the confidence that we can achieve, but it's going to take, a lot of goodwill beyond what we have given over the past 15 years, and a lot of resources beyond what we have given over the past 15 years to get to that next phase. So that's where we are now. Oh no, it's a remarkable transformation, and to have seen it, and it's in a very short window, it all happened. Wow. And so, and now, when I was in Haiti, I didn't know what Indiana was. Indiana didn't exist. If you were in Haiti, you knew Miami, you knew New York, you knew Chicago. Now people in Haiti are coming. There was a wave of people that crossed the border in El Paso. I think that was a year or so ago, and there was a big controversy about it because they had, people on horseback, were chasing people down. A lot of these people actually ended up here. A lot of people that actually made it through the border there are actually here in town. Because, again, the word is out now. Indiana is the next frontier.
Wow.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Because, again, if you go to Miami or New York, these places are highly saturated. If you get a minimum wage job, if you work in hospitality or any one of those places, the money you make cannot cover the cost of living. Again, you talk about, a 1-bedroom apartment in Miami can run you anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 a month. There's no way you can make it down there, working a minimum wage. And you come here in Indiana and you work, in one of these warehouses, you make $18, $20 an hour. I mean, that's, and you pay $700, $800 for an apartment. That's the cost difference, the cost benefit here is just remarkable. It's dramatic. And people know that. And the word is out that those chances exist. Those opportunities exist here. There is a component of that now, and primarily because the job market has softened. There was a time when, hey, if you drop in town, the next day you can be working. I think now, again, with the economy the way it is, a lot of employers are a lot more picky now, and they're a lot more, I guess, reserved. Because again, they're like, hey, inflation is high, recession may be coming, banks are not doing so well, there may be a debt ceiling battle. So what we've noticed, again, because we are also in the staffing business, is a lot of people are taking sort of a wait and see approach. A lot of employers are. And so the abundance of jobs that used to exist even just 6 months ago is not there anymore. Now, again, it may be a temporary phase, but we are seeing, that people that are coming now it's taking them a bit longer to find that job now compared to what it was 6 months ago. So that may naturally slow things down a bit, but if it picks up again, then we will see that wave again. So what we are doing now in the project, I think Moise will talk about that a bit more, is the type of needs that we are responding to now are not the very dire, hey, I need to eat needs, right? It's, hey, these women are coming into town pregnant, and the hospitals, we need help to understand what to do with it. And one of the story, again, that is part of that issue is, as people come in through the country, and especially that wave that came in through the border a year or so ago, there was just a basic core understanding that families would be put in front of the lines. And so what happened, through the journey, because that journey from Haiti to here, people would leave Haiti, go to Brazil, and walk on foot from Brazil through South America to get to the border. And, it's a very perilous journey. And what a lot of people end up doing is, because they understand families would be put in front of the line, men and women will hook up along the way, and pregnancies and all those things happen. And what then ultimately happens is that as soon as they cross into the country, the guys leave and the women are stuck with the babies. And we were getting calls, from a hospital in Evansville that say, hey, women are showing up at our doors, they're all pregnant, we don't know what to do. and that was, shocking, because again, it's a community just popped up out of nowhere in Evansville, Indiana. And so treating these women, for example, goes beyond simply saying, hey, here's a place to stay, here's a crib for your baby, here's some diapers, but there is also a psychological aspect involved in all of that too. And so what we are looking to do is, primarily in creating this resource center, is to be able to facilitate some of those things a bit better. Because again, doing it on spare time, because again, we are all volunteer. We all have full-time jobs. What we do for HAI is on our spare time. But the kind of support that is required to do the things beyond the basic, hey, I need a meal today, is going to take a lot more than what we are giving now. So it's a daunting task, to say the least. But there are a lot of really good partners that are willing and are ready to help, if we can put a structure together where they can funnel this help through, right? So luckily over the years, we have built a lot of really good relationships with different agencies and partners throughout the city. Now, what we want to do is cash in on those relationships and say, now, help us actually move the needle a bit more. Right? So it's a still evolving story, but it's had a lot of twists and turns over the years, and we think there's still a lot more to come. Right? So it's, how do we prepare ourselves to address some of those things when they come? Yeah.